مرحبا بكم في
Welcome back to
الثانية
this second
في
session
ندوتنا هذه
of this conference.
مجموعة مميزة.
We have esteemed speakers, and I will be very brief in my introduction in order to avoid missing any parts of their important papers that give us deep dimensions when it comes to the Palestinian cause. The reactions that the Arab world are most of the time described as emotional. I do not agree to describe any reaction in the Arab world or Palestine as emotional. However, talking about the emotional speech, we can also mention the steps on the ground, and very seldom do we study these steps on the ground and their repercussions at the demographic and geographic level. And all the speakers here will be talking, in addition to the speakers during the previous session. The battle, the fight today in Palestine, just like always, is about demographics and geography. And bureaucracy has been used, administration has been used, and the policies were used, statistics were used, description, social and political descriptions and definitions were used in order for the Israelis to be able to say and to implement their dreams, particularly the Zionist entity, saying that there is no Palestinians on the ground. And this is a reality that will not happen. However, some people are seeking to implement that or to reach this objective. In addition to that, when we talk about the demography or demographics in Jerusalem, we are talking about the foundation of the conflict there, because we know that demographics rule people who are there, who can contribute to the resistance to the Israeli occupation there. Last but not least, when it comes to statistics and demographics, we need to pay attention to a series of things. The Zionist entity talk about Jewish versus Palestinians. This is an important issue to highlight. Jewish people are not a race or an ethnic group that can be mentioned in the same category as the Arab ethnic group. So, trying to create new entities is important. This war of demographic includes a very important issue, which is that natural weapons are successfully used by the Palestinians when it comes to the demographics and the increasing population. The Israelis' population is not increasing. This is why they move to different orbits. I will be giving the floor to our first speaker, and the speakers agreed that she will be the first speaker for today. Dana Al-Kurd from the Arab Center. She is a researcher at the Arab Study for Research and Policy Study. She is specialized in the field of comparative politics and international relations, with a particular focus on Palestine, authoritarianism, and contentious politics. Al-Kurd received a PhD in political science from the University of Texas in Austin, in the United States of America, and she will be presenting a paper about shifting mobilization patterns in Jerusalem, the role of the Palestinian Authority. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much for this introduction. As Dr. Majed said, I will be talking about the demonstrations in Jerusalem and the impact on that. I will talk about three main topics: the demographic changes, the change in the historic political perspective, and the changes in the recent years. And I'll start with the demographic changes. Mr. Mahajna has, in the previous session, has talked about this. After 1967, about 200 settlers moved to East Jerusalem, and these 200 became almost 155,000. And in the East Jerusalem now there is about 200,000. The natural increase in Palestinians from 66,000 in 67 to 74,000, but the increase in the settlement, in the settlers' numbers, obviously indicates there is a deliberate attempt to increase them beyond the natural increase. And the government wants to apply an horizontal expansion, and the municipality wants to increase the already existing settlements, and also the politically, religiously, and security-wise sensitive areas are encouraged by religious organizations like the City of David and the non-governmental organizations, which is funded from somewhere, nobody knows where. Generally speaking, the funding comes from America. They're working on the Silwan neighborhood to increase the number of tourists, and they use the property absentee law to utilize that. And until now there is some 75 Israeli families living in this small neighborhood. At the same time, Israel is trying to force the Palestinians to leave. They took a large swathes from the Palestinian land in Jerusalem and only gave 13% to Palestinians. The rest, of course, goes to Jews, and at the same time they make it almost impossible to give planning permission and permission to build for Palestinians, and they designate them as national parks, and they reserve them for building purposes in the future. Of course, we all heard about the wall which divides the settlements and Israeli districts. This map gives you an example. As you see, the areas in blue are the national parks, and the black line on the right is the wall which goes through Abu Dis district and separates it from Jerusalem and makes it very difficult for Palestinians to have a normal life. There are three belts, one external which contains the settlements in the suburban areas of I'm sorry, I don't have a laser pointer to show you, but in the north, Gif'at Za'ef, in the east, Ma'ali Dimim, and in the south, Koshetyon block. These are the settlements that make up the external or the outside belt. The middle belt, and they were built, the settlements here were built after 67, and similarly what Dr. Mahajna has said, they wanted to link East Jerusalem with West Jerusalem, and like the French Hill and other areas in the middle of the town, and also the internal belt which contain the sensitive areas around the old city. 2012, the Knesset discussed annexing these settlements to and add them to the official municipal borders. In the E1 area, which is very sensitive to the east of the city, for years the Knesset wants to build in this area and the government wants to build in this area, but because of external pressures The implementation was postponed. Now they want to build in E1. This is very dangerous. This will cut off Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank and will stop any natural expansion. This is the E1 area plan, which is in the east of Jerusalem. And you see the Palestinian districts in yellow. If they build here, then Jerusalem will not be able to expand. This is the situation the Palestinians find themselves in Jerusalem. We should also understand the political situation. The argument in this paper says that the Palestinian Authority has a negative impact on the ability of Palestinians to act collectively or go out on demonstrations, and this happened between 1993 until 2001, or the Second Intifada. After the Second Intifada, the Israelis oppressed any organization related to the Palestinian Authority. Ironically, this made Palestinians more self-reliant and to build the social cohesion relying on their own resources. Also, demonstrations and protests in Jerusalem are different than the rest of the West Bank. Until now, the demonstrations in Jerusalem are still active, but only for the short term. I'll focus on three stages. First, the pre-Oslo, from after the occupation of 1967 till 1993, when the citizens of Jerusalem had the choice of taking up Israeli identity. The majority refused that and boycotted the municipal. No, the nationality, Israeli citizenship, they refused. They took up the identity card. For example, they used to appoint mukhtars or local leaders or dignitaries, but the ones appointed by the Israelis were not trusted by the general population, by and large. And the social cohesion was very strong in the first Intifada, and Jerusalem was very important for Palestinian political activity at the center for the first Intifada. The Palestinians relied on popular committees which were established in every district to face up to occupation and resist occupation. In the first Intifada, the Palestinians were very coherent, and Jerusalem in particular was an important communication line between the Palestinians on the ground in Palestine and the PLO outside. The second stage, between 1993 and 2002, the Israelis allowed to a certain extent for Palestinian organizations to move and provide services for the Palestinians, but at the same time all the Palestinian authorities were concentrated in Ramallah, and what was in existence of authorities before 1993 lost its importance, and the PA didn't want any competition anyway. Eventually, the Palestinians in Jerusalem started relying on the Palestinian Authority and trying to benefit from professional gain. People who were interested in political organization started focusing on personal gains. The impact of this situation is apparent in the second Intifada and after, when the social cohesion retreated, and when the second Intifada happened, the Palestinians in Jerusalem were not organized, and this protest activity was a lot less. They started relying on individual acts, on martyrdom, on self-sacrificing operations, and most of the operations emanated from Jerusalem, and the Israelis wanted to punish the Palestinians in Jerusalem. For this reason, they closed down all Palestinian organizations like Orient, House, and others. So the oppression was great indeed in East Jerusalem. Now, after the second Intifada and the increase in the Israeli oppression, the Israeli security, which combat political subversion, are very active now. They really try to hunt down anybody who's politically active, and the Palestinians in East Jerusalem now feel very marginalized. But what happened as a result of this is the pattern of protest has changed. Now the role of the PA is very limited. The Palestinians are relying on themselves and trying to revive the organizations which were in existence before 1993 to rebuild the social cohesion. And in my interviews with the activists, they say this, they say they don't want the Israelis to impact them. And in sociology, there is the concept of non-movement. So this concept explains why protests in Jerusalem take place, although there are no organizations to coordinate, because people, when they face daily difficulties or there is a challenge by the Israelis on their daily life, they can get together on a certain single issue for short term and organize themselves. But this will not be for long term. And the protests in Jerusalem are different than the West Bank, because the people in the West Bank are still reliant on the PA. And so if we make a comparison in numbers between a number of protests in the West Bank vis-a-vis Jerusalem, and 60% of the Palestinian people live in the Area A under the PA control to a certain extent, and the number of protests in Jerusalem is equivalent or equal to all the protests in the rest of the areas. When we look at the number of protests per year, we see the number of protests has increased. The more the Palestinians work to organize themselves and achieve more social cohesion, we see more protests. For example, 2014, when the Israelis wanted to apply restrictions on Al-Aqsa Mosque and the settlers attacks and Muhammad Abu Khair and other cases, when Israel changed its policies, eased up a little bit, the protests also become less, but in all events it was increasing on yearly basis. And also in this graph, in the governorate of Jerusalem, you see the area which saw more protests are linked to Al-Aqsa Mosque, like the Old City, or the areas where the Israeli army has committed acts of aggression. As an example of the argument which I'm presenting today, I'll mention or compare the Aqsa protests in 2017 compared to the ones against Trump. The Aqsa protests against the metal detectors at the gates of the mosque were organized locally and organically and unofficially and without any help from the PA. The youth used the social media and to organize and to meet, and they used organic strategies like using the Friday congregation prayers, or you benefit from the religious endowment organizations, but this was limited in nature and also confined to Al-Aqsa Mosque and its related issues and the metal detectors. In the areas where people were impacted more with casualties, people getting killed and injured, are the areas marked with red stars on this map, and which were really impacted by Israeli policy. When we compare the protests in the summer of 2017 to the Trump announcement, we see the number was less a lot in the Trump because the Palestinians know how to organize themselves better when it comes to protesting against daily issues or issues relating to the Al-Aqsa Mosque or aggressions by the army or settlers, but not when it comes to political issues which may have a long-term impact. So when it comes to Al-Aqsa, they organize themselves, but when it came to the Trump announcement, they could not do so. In conclusion, I say political action, the fundamental reason why there are more protests in Jerusalem and not in the rest of the West Bank is due to the fact that the Palestinian Authority still enjoys more influence in the West Bank outside Jerusalem, and the Palestinians in Jerusalem know how to rebuild the organizations which existed before Oslo in 1993. The Palestinians suffer from both Israeli oppression and the lack of support by the PA. The protests may increase as we saw in 2013, 2014 and after. And thank you very much for your kind attention.
I would like to thank you, Doctor. I would like to call upon the second speaker, Dr. Khalil Toufakji. Dr. Khalil Toufakji is the director of the Maps and Survey Department at Orient House, Jerusalem. Toufakji is also a member of the Licensing Committee and the Governorate of Jerusalem. He is a Palestinian representative in the Arab Division of the UN Group of Experts on Geographical Names. He has authored a number of publications, most recently Map of Palestine since 1948, and issued by the Palestinian Studies Association, and the Map of the Neighborhoods of Jerusalem and the Old City, issued by the Committee of Jerusalem Heritage. Dr. Toufakji is going to present a paper, Jerusalem, the Battle for Demographic and Geographic Supremacy. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before starting, I would like to say that I will be tackling two aspects, the political and the media. Actually, we have been talking about Jerusalem for long, and my colleague also talked and said the word Jerusalem is understood politically or in political geography. Every word has a meaning and has a map. I will start my paper in order for the media and the politicians whenever they talk about Jerusalem or mention Jerusalem, the Jordanian Jerusalem, the East Jerusalem, the expanded Jerusalem. Donc, what does it mean, this Jerusalem? What does it mean? Even the moving of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and the recognition of
Trump of Jerusalem as the capital city of the Israeli state is a violation of the 48 resolution. And during the Ottoman days, Jerusalem was the old city. And here we can see the holy Jerusalem. So within the walls of Jerusalem, it had the holy shrines. At the end of the 19th century, we started having neighborhoods outside of the walls, and the British occupation was in 1917. In 1922, there was an expansion of the municipality of Jerusalem. We are talking about huge areas that reach to Bethlehem. Resolution 181 is there, and right now not a single country recognizes Jerusalem as the capital city of the Jewish state. So only two countries, Pakistan and the UK, recognized at the beginning. So in terms of international law, this is an occupation. West Jerusalem was occupied by the Israelis, and Jordan so agreed in a way or another. And maybe this is the first time that you hear about this, but that was the decision of the resolution regarding this particular issue. In 1922, the municipality of Jerusalem was expanded, and the town of Jerusalem was expanded. When you read the Israeli textbooks, as if there has always been a Jewish majority and a minority of Arabs. It starts since 1922 and up until now, a majority of Jewish and a minority of Arab. Of course, this majority and minority is the result of the drawing of borders. Someone said, how can you talk about majority? When the borders of the municipality of Jerusalem were drawn, the settlements of Israel, you can see they were on the west, but the towns, the Palestinian towns that are maybe 500 meters away from the walls are outside of Jerusalem. And this is how the majority and the minority started, because every time you discuss demographics with the Israelis, they always say, we were the majority, you were the minority, and he starts talking about figures and numbers. Are they correct or not? This is not our discussion. This is another discussion for another day. This is the result of drawing the borders. The first settlements started in 1860 in West Jerusalem, and during the Ottoman days they started moving and shifting towards the west, and this was a crucial factor in terms of West Jerusalem, when there was a majority of Jewish people and a minority of the Arab, and in East Jerusalem it was the opposite. So they did away with the Jewish who were in the old town, old city, and the settlements surrounding Jerusalem, like Atarot or Leve Yaakov in the east, or Gosh Etzion in the southern part. So the Jewish were sent to the West Jerusalem, to inside the Israel of the state of Israel, and the Arabs won. The demographics were a key factor in 1948 when it comes to the division of the state of the city of Jerusalem. You can see on the screen a green line, and you can see the city of Jerusalem divided into two. So East Jerusalem had consulates, and in the west consulates, American, French, British, etc. So what was between 48 and 67, that was the situation of Jerusalem. In 1959 they expanded the municipality to 6.5 kilometers, and this is Jerusalem. This is what we call Jordanian Jerusalem or East Jerusalem. Now politicians are starting to talk about that the Jerusalem that was occupied after 1967 1967. They are no longer talking about Eastern Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, or Al-Quds al-Sharif, because the word Quds al-Sharif, the holy Jerusalem, is the Dome of the Rock usually. However, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is actually has religious and political meanings, and then when the city of Jerusalem, actually it would be very damaging to consider that Al-Aqsa is Jerusalem only. And in 1967, the city of Jerusalem was expanded from 6.5 to 70 square kilometers. You can see on the screen the size of Jerusalem and the expansion of Jerusalem. So this is the unified Jerusalem that we are going to mention. So the Jerusalem that the Israelis are talking about today, this is the Jerusalem that was unified after 1967, and in this direction it was drawn for three main reasons. The most important of them was the biggest land with the least people. So the Palestinians owned 100% of these borders, and of course when it comes to the means of control, first of all they were seized property for the public interest. You can see them in red. According to the law of 1943, public interest is, for example, building a hospital, building a park, building a playground. Here it was used in order to build settlements, Israeli settlements. In red we can see 35% of the surface of Jerusalem that was occupied after 1967, or 24 square kilometers. Of course, there was a lot of protests, and in 1995 we represented the UN. Madeleine Albright was then. My colleague talked about the behind-the-scenes drafting some laws. There were seizing operations after the peace operation. The decision was frozen without being cancelled. The second point is the planning and organization. So now you can see in green on the screen. In green it doesn't mean, of course, forests. We are talking about green areas, open spaces that can be used as strategic reserves in the future. With the roads, they form 52%. Now look at the screen. You can see the red, the green, and some light brown in between. So here you can see a division, a separation. So they enclosed it, they surrounded it, they divided it, and they separated the communities, the Palestinian communities, which means it would be easier for them to control them from a security perspective. At any given time, they can shut it down and control it, and that was their vision. In 1973, back to demographics, the Prime Minister was Golda Meir, and they formed the Gavni Committee. The Gavni Committee said that Arabs need to be 22% or 25%, 22 to 25%. How can we control them? That was the question. They seized real estate, they destroyed houses, they withdrew residency. The Palestinians were still 41% of the total population of Jerusalem. Based on these figures, they started with the wall of separation. Through this wall, one strike put thousands of Palestinians outside of the wall. 150,000. Today, Netanyahu is saying if the demographic conflict, the demographic growth changes to a security conflict, the state should move very quickly. during the last war of stabbing, he said very clearly, I don't need those Palestinians, I want to get rid of them. And there was a mistake. They put cement blocks on the borders with the Jordanian Jerusalem border. So they had cement blocks. Of course, we can see them on the maps. And then 3 days later, they removed the cement blocks and started talking about another case. Ishaq Herzl talked about fearing to see the next day the head of the municipality, an Arab, and they started talking about getting rid of Palestinian residents. Even Haim Ramon, during the last study, talked about this issue of demographics, to the need to separate from these citizens or residents, particularly to the 100,000. They are a security burden, and this is the reason behind the wall of separation that put them out. Now we can talk about Zone X. What do we mean when we say Zone X? We have A, B, C, and now X. It means a block of Palestinian communities that will be in a region, in an area that is unidentified. So it is not recognized. The authority refused. The municipality of Jerusalem is saying we don't need them, and now they are creating some sort of like a local administration in order to get rid of those residents. So the separation wall that was mentioned by my colleague, E1, East 1, the eastern gate. The Israelis today, they have this concern when it comes to demographics. They want to establish metropolitan Jerusalem, and not the Greater Jerusalem. The metropolitan Jerusalem means I want to take 10% of the West Bank and change the demographic balance. I want 150,000 out and 150,000 in. Some studies talk about 12% of Arabs and the remaining Israelis, and some other studies talk about 30%. But the ultimate objective is to reduce the number of Arab residents. What's happening in Jerusalem is a demographic battle. We lost geography as Palestinians, now we have the demographics. When it comes to communication between the regions or the zones, you need tunnels. So the first floor is for the Palestinians, the second floor is for the Israelis. The second project, which is the isolation and the separation and establishing settlements in the Palestinian areas. It could have been possible to divide the city of Jerusalem in the past. There were negotiations and we reached an advanced degree. However, there was a project in the 1990s to establish 26 gates, so having settlements in Palestinian neighborhoods, and this is what took place in 2001. The green areas, you can see Jabal Abu Ghneim mounted, and here you can see as an example in 2011 you can see it's populated now. And now this is the settlement 2015. So using the green zones for settlements. Now we can see all the settlements. Even this is a future project that they have planned it ahead of time. So these settlements around the old city, actually they cause a problem, and they talked about the Holy Basin. It is a link between the Jewish myth and history and sovereignty. We will reach that. These settlements here in Jerusalem, Silwan, so here we can see the Holy Basin. According to the maps of the Israeli maps in 2001, the Holy Basin, the myth, the Jewish myth, says that the Christ that they're waiting is going to come to the Olive Mountain, and then he will enter from the door of mercy that is shut now, and he will build the temple. And here they are linking the historical case. Suleiman and Solomon and David were here, linked with the religious aspect of the temple, the prayers used to enter the temple, and talking about the sovereignty. So the Holy Basin case is complex. They talk about the Olive Mountain, the site where the prophets were buried, etc. Let me give you some examples here on the screen regarding the population. So, a comparison. You can see it here, for example, the settlements, the settling units, Arabs, Jewish, and in the future. Controlling the territories, we are 13%. From 100% to 13%. Education, we only control 35% because the remaining is controlled by the municipality. Demolition of houses, same thing. Withdrawal of RPs, residence permit. Here on the screen, you can see the old town, the old city. Who owns the old? He who owns the old city owns the world, because you have Christian pilgrims, you have Muslim pilgrims, and you have the Jewish wall of limitation. And so these are the Israelis are trying to control this old city. So the Jewish neighborhood was in yellow. You can see it before 1948 in yellow. This was the Jewish neighborhood. Today, this is the Jewish neighborhood in red. You can see the expansion of the Jewish neighborhood. So, from a small surface, it expanded to 130 dunams, and here you can see the settlements, absentees, the properties were seized, and also the removal of the Muslim neighborhood. And when we reach the, I will conclude, this is the Dome of the Rock, Al-Aqsa Mosque, we can see it. The battle today, the religious battle, is 144. We forgot all the history. The issue of the embassy. The embassy will not be in the old city. So when we talked about the U.S. Embassy, we need to remember about the consulate in the West Jerusalem that was huge, and the consulate was in East Jerusalem was transferred to the American House, the U.S. House, and the consulate of the United States will be moved from consulate to Jerusalem, and it is in West Jerusalem. All of it. But part of the residence is in the no man's land. So for the Americans today, they have a problem in terms of international law, recognition, and the Europeans are against them. Barcelona, the Basque, the Catalonia, the Flemish, the German-speaking areas want independence. So the European Union is concerned, and I think that the United States is in a big trouble when it comes to moving the embassy, and this could be postponed or cancelled until the negotiations are settled. Thank you. I would like to thank you for respecting the time. You also had 12 seconds remaining, so it is a very smooth way forward. The first paper talked about an aspect, and the second paper talked about the demographic and geographic aspects, and now we move to the Israeli ways of control, the matrix of control,
panel presented by Rassem Khamaisi, Dr. Rassem Khamaisi, who is with us here. He is from Haifa. He is the head of the planning and urban planner, professor at urban geography and planning at Haifa, and he holds a PhD from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He is currently visiting professor at the Queen's University in Belfast. Khamaisi has published numerous books and articles in Arabic, English, and Hebrew. He heads planning teams for many Palestinian cities and villages such as Ramallah and Kalikia, and has been part of multiple national and international planning teams. The floor is yours, sir. Good evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the Arab Center for Research and Policy Studies for this very valuable conference that brought us together, and I would like to continue in the same pathway of all the interventions. I will avoid to be redundant, and I will try to contextualize and to give it a framework. So I will try to shape some concepts and talk about some problematic issues in order to produce knowledge. Of course, 20 minutes is not enough, but I will try to shed some light on some specific points. Maybe we need more meetings in order to delve in details. It is clear that the struggle or the fight for Jerusalem is part of the fight for culture of a nation, of a society, of a culture, trying to reduce it to a battle or a fight for a city. Although it is a very important city, Brother Khalil tried to give us some definitions. Some people might create these definitions. Some people might base their definitions on geography and historical changes. The second part is that the conflict is a conflict of will, of intention. It is a conflict of resources, and it is in the context of history, culture, and it should be dealt with accordingly. And I need to take into account practically that when we talk about Jerusalem is the foundation for us as Arabs, Palestinian people, from a set of values in order to treat this topic, or from a temporary, limited political situation, the situation that I call the situation of weakness. However, even the weak can be strong. This is why all the words that are being used, we need to re-examine them, talking about the limits or the borders of geography and demographics is very important. Talking about the demographic concern is not only in Jerusalem, it's also in Haifa and Naqab and the surrounding areas. They have concerns when it comes to demographics, and we have a reaction as if we are the victims. It is very problematic, and we need to understand it and deal with it in a different way. So we threaten the Israelis as a concept, as an entity, as a Zionist entity. Our problem is not with the Jewish, our problem is with Zionism. There is aggression, and our problem is with the aggression, with the occupation. When we talk about demographics and geography, from a moral standpoint, I am against using the demographics and the children as part of the struggle and the conflict, as part of the values that I would like to highlight. Any woman has the right to deliver, and the son
the daughter cannot be used in a demographic fight from a moral standpoint. And of course, Israeli women do not think this way. Of course, we need to focus on the set of values in order to deal with this issue. Discussing geography and demographics, actually geography is part of what we are dealing with. So are we just using this place, or are we helping to produce this place? This is very important. One of the key problematic issues in Jerusalem today is institutionalizing the work. Institutions were shut down, other institutions were sent away. Our colleague here tried to suggest European institutions, etc., but there was reverting back to the traditional social sets, the old social values, tribal communities in a way, and this is the problem. The Israelis have some sort of vacuum, and there is an ideology that is built on a set of moral values that are trying to develop, to create people, an entity, and new principles. Part of them are based on the Torah, another part are political, and another part are trying to control the land and change the political scene. This situation led to a new understanding of the conflict for the city and created some sort of matrix. This matrix there has always been there, but it is used sometimes when needed in order to control or produce something. Let me give you an example. The old town, the old city, in 1967 there was 22,000 Palestinians. Today the Palestinians are 32,000 living there today. So there's an increase. So why did this increase took place? So we're talking about 330,000 within the borders that were limited or that were determined by Israel as a municipality. So we are talking about the sovereignty and the municipality, and this is exceptional. And Israel is trying to enact laws to support this decision. So this has led to political institutions and the civil society institutions. In addition to the customary law, the society is trying to deal with that. We are talking about a strategy to protect Jerusalem. In 1967, Jerusalem was connected with corridor, and it was called the Road to Jerusalem. After 1967, we have nutrition, Vamet in Hebrew. It is an expansion in order to create a broader entity by separating communities who live there. The old city, except for the Jewish neighborhood that was there, we had 76 buildings. Should I focus on 76 buildings that were illegally built? Or should I see the 32,000 who live there and try to strengthen them as a strategy for the future? So the question is, I need to understand what to focus on. In addition to that, what words should we use? Most of us, even when we listen to the speeches and interventions and lectures are the result of an Israeli product. To include the maps, I read the Hebrew and I can understand who produces the text and the literature and spread to the researchers all over the world, and then they are translated to English and they're used by English speakers and they are projected and they are used in order to change our concepts, and therefore we are influenced by that and we deal with that as if they are reality, and whereas in reality they have been created by the Jewish themselves. So it becomes a fight for survival and a reaction and not action. So it's not a proactive approach, but a reaction after reaction. So behind or beyond the wall. So if you want to be Palestinians, ask for the Palestinian residents. So sometimes we can ask questions about the personal, individual ways of dealing with these circumstances. Of course, they have their own situations, they have their own conditions and circumstances that they are dealing with. However, we need to find a balance between the solutions that we want and the reality on the ground. Dealing with this matrix of control, people have different approaches. Here on the screen you can see territory, population, laws and regulations and plans, and reality and status. This is the matrix on the screen. Some people talk about the specificities of Jerusalem. Even if you go to the British mandate and they consider that capital city, and they moved all their institutions and organization there, and then after the resolution 181 it had a special status, and after that in 1967 it had a special status. Even in the Israeli law there's always this exception, and it allows for solutions that are different than the ones adopted elsewhere. For example, the law of property absentee is not only in Jerusalem, it is all over the Palestinian territories. So sometimes we focus on specific points in a very limited space and forget what happens elsewhere. So we have laws, regulations, rules. The Israelis talk about democracy, state of institutions. So you create the problematic issue and you try to find a solution. For example, the license to build building. This is international. This is it happens all over the world. However, how it is being used in Israel in order to control, whether talking about the cost and the fees of these permits of these licenses, even when it comes to the real estate itself, one of the main instruments of this matrix of control and accusing the Palestinians is actually the building licenses. When you see part of this matrix, you can see that they put an end to the licenses that are issued in Jerusalem to Palestinians. Why? The authorities in Israel, they do not want to facilitate any litigation between the Palestinians whenever they occur. For example, there's inheritance of old properties and they don't have the right paperwork. They go to an institution that is in charge of that, but this institution that is run and controlled by the Israelis complicates the situation for them and therefore does not allow them to own and this property properly and to build and to live there illegally. So there is a question regarding that. And another question, another central key question, Palestinians in Surabaya and the eastern coast, in Beit Hanina, let us take the initiative to find a solution, to the right paperwork, to register our land, to register our real estate in order to be ready to face this control, this matrix of control, of Israeli control, and we tried to deal with this. When we talk, let me show you this map. 60% of the West Bank area sea. If you look here, actually, de facto, on the ground, the 60% of the sea zone, 70% are affiliated with Jewish regional councils that give the total right to citizenship to Jewish, and they create this local law that supersedes the international law, and this is the situation. De facto, this is the fait accompli on the ground. We need to understand the legal situation. We need to understand how the domestic laws are being implemented locally, and establishing the settlements, especially when it comes to the national Israeli court that is being used as a tool to legitimize and legalize the solutions that are created on the ground. So this map shows that there is some sort of control, and Ala mentioned deep Israel that influences the media, the court, the military. It was based on the Zionist concept, the Zionism. It has become a regional Zionism. It is towards the right. It wants to control the Palestinians, and this needs to be revisited. When it comes to the geographic matrix, there's a lot of tools. I'm not going to go in details for these tools, but the Palestinian neighborhoods were not planned. Some people say so. This is not accurate. There were plans for the Palestinian neighborhoods. They were ratified in 1980 and 1990 as well. However, how were they planned? First of all, buildings need to have the village spirit, although we are talking about city. The second thing is there is no public spaces, open spaces, so there is no elements of the city to be created in the area of the Palestinian neighborhood. So the priority was given to Jewish settlements, and this has created a new situation in West Jerusalem and another city, Ramallah, that became bigger and that created institutions. A lot of middle-class residents of Jerusalem from the Palestinians moved to Ramallah like they were moving to Amman in the past. Some of them lived in Ramallah and come and go to Ramallah on a daily basis. 2 minutes, says the chairman. So, the definitions. Talking about definitions. A permanent resident. So, for example, as individual, you have the right to be a citizen. However, they are considering you resident between what's permanent and what's temporary. It's a very problematic issue, and the borders within the city of Jerusalem, even within the city of Jerusalem, there is a division in order to distribute resources and buildings, not according to the 50-40%, but there are also plans for the future talking about demographics, so we can talk about the development of the urban development of the Palestinians. 16% of the city of Jerusalem for the Palestinian urban planning, and it is impossible to have city that is created. Where is the center? Where is the park? Where is the playground? Where is the mall? Where is the transportation hubs? So these are ways to control the property, and this is why we have a situation where these ways are used to control the Palestinians. It is a very important point that I would like to mention. The civil society are coordinating with the institution, the official institution. Are we only facing the state of Israel, or we are facing more than the state of Israel? And in practice, the state of Israel is actually playing a role to implement an international will, and I would like to conclude by saying that we need to produce new concepts. We need to challenge the international and local concepts in order to create our own terminology, avoid the projections, avoid using the literature that is not ours, not being complacent when it comes to this terminology, and we do not want to use their words in order to defend our cause. Thank you.
Now we move to our final intervention by Dr. Francesco Chiodelli from Italy, L'Aquila in Italy, and he has many publications in English by Routledge and other publishing houses. He got his PhD from Milano University. The floor is yours,
Thank you for inviting me. Good morning, everybody. I'm the last one of this session, therefore my presentation overlaps with some of the previous presentation. I'm sorry for this, but you can consider it a sort of summary. And what I'm going to do today is presenting you a quick overview of my 10-year research on municipal urban policies in Jerusalem, with reference in particular to housing. So the thesis I'm going to argue is this one. If you want to understand the conflict and the fate of the future, you must look at the urban space. It's essential to look at the urban space because what is going on is a sort of low-intensity war of cement and stone. And this is very clearly in mind of Israeli politicians. Just one quotation is quotation by Ehud Olmert when he was the mayor of Jerusalem before becoming prime minister, who said, although I cannot make political decisions on the issue of Jerusalem, I can make things happen on the ground, like building along the old border and create continuity of Jewish settlement in Jerusalem. My decision on these issues will influence the option available to the government for a political solution for Jerusalem. So this is the starting point. And we, at least in Europe, we keep referring to, at international level, at diplomatic level, to a city which, unfortunately, is not existing any longer. The 1967 city, which was divided, hence divisible. So this is the city we, Europe, keep referring in the political debate. Unfortunately, this city is not any longer existing. We have another city, currently, after 50 years of urban policies and planning in Jerusalem, we have another city which is dual, and this is not a contradiction, is almost undivided and undivisible. So I'm going to argue for this statement, which is quite strong, but unfortunately it seems to me that this is the reality we have to deal with. And as you well know, this situation is due to, I would say, two main processes, or two main things. The first one is the dual process of Judaization and Arabization. The second one is the wall. I will start with the first one, so I will be quite quick in order not to be redundant on the so-called Judaization process, and I would like to give you some few data on these. As we said, around 50,000 housing units have been built in the occupied area of East Jerusalem, meaning that around 40% of the Jewish population of the city currently live in these housing units. And the result on the ground is this map only for residential areas. So this is the city today in terms of residential areas. And consider, this is quite important, that in many cases these housing units have been built on land expropriated from the Palestinians and through Israeli public support. And this is another quite interesting quotation by Eyal Weizman, saying that over 1/3 of the land in East Jerusalem annexed by the state was expropriated from its Palestinian owner for the establishment and expansion of the Jewish neighborhood under the pretext of catering for public needs. So we can talk of a sort of social housing and public housing. However, the use of the term public reveals more than anything else the government's political bias. The public on whom expropriations were imposed always comprised Palestinians. The public who enjoyed the fruits of the expropriation always exclusively comprised Jewish. And in order to visualize what are we speaking about, look at this picture, because we have also to visualize this neighborhood. Okay, there are just few pictures, and you have to keep in mind this picture in order to understand why I'm talking about a dual city. So these kind of objects, and consider that this process will continue. It's quite obvious to us, but it will continue according to the Israeli documents. If you look at the Jerusalem Master Plan, you can see that in the next 1 or 2 decades, the Israeli government and the municipal government want to build around 35 new housing units in East Jerusalem, so almost doubling the actual magnitude of Jewish settlement, residential Jewish settlement in Jerusalem. And the final situation would be this one, where you can see the expansion of Jewish neighborhoods or settlements in East Jerusalem. So this is obviously something quite well clear to, well known to all of you. So I would like to devote a bit more time on the other process, so the de-Arabization process, meaning the containment or Arab-Palestinian urban and demographic expansion. Usually we stress 4 aims of this policy. The first one is preserving urban space for Jewish expansion. The second, inducing Arab Jerusalem to leave the city. And some of the previous speakers stressed these 2 points. However, my point of view is that I would say that the main goal of the de-Arabization process, or I would say the main outcome, is not pushing Palestinians to leave. That's not the main outcome. Otherwise, we can admit that this policy has been quite ineffective, because we are speaking about around 14,000 resident permit revoked, some of them related to people who left for going abroad. The point is that, and I want to argue for, the third and the fourth aim are more important from the point of view, at least, of urban space. So the third aim is they are promoting this process with the aim of keeping Arab Jerusalem in a situation of precariousness, submission, and constriction, hence facilitating their domination and control. And the fourth aim is, and which is very important, to make the Arab neighborhood extraneous in the terms of urban fabric to the rest of the city. And I'm going to analyze in particular these two points, and I'm providing you just few data, which is quite fundamental keep in mind. So this data, as a previous speaker was already mentioning it, is the datum about building permits. So we are speaking about 43 years, 1967, 2010, 4,300 around building permits for 200,000 more people. So we had 200,000 more Palestinians in the city and only 4,000 building permits, meaning one building permit for 50 people in the city. And this situation of scarcity is very complex and is due to different aspects of the regulatory system, so urban plans, urban code, building rules, cadastral system, which are very, very technical and very boring, I guess, since you are not urban planners. So I would like just to give you the flavor of these issues, even if you have to keep in mind that, as we say in Italy, the devil is into the details. And in this case, the devil is into the administrative and planning details. So just to reason for this scarcity of building permits, the first one is obviously the shortage of building plots. Again, this is a graph summarizing the situation of land in East Jerusalem. So 100% is the 100% of the land. So the circle is 100%. What we have around 1/3 of land which has been expropriated for building, in particular Jewish residential areas. Okay, so 1/3 is not available for Palestinian building. Unfortunately, we have also another 1/3 which is unplanned, and it is a task of the municipality, of the Israeli municipality, to plan this area. Unfortunately, these areas are not planned, so you cannot apply for a building permit. So 2/3 are out of your control. Then we have 20% of green areas and areas for public infrastructure. So also this 20% is forbidden for building private Palestinian house units. And then we have just 15% of the surface which is available for residential development, of 10% is already developed. So we have just 5% of the surface of the city which is available for new residential development. And this is the first thing you have to keep in mind. Then we have also some specific constraints on the issue of building permits, which are related again to the complex regulatory system in Israel. So land registration system, the cost of building permit, the floor area ratio, and the maximum building height. And I want just to focus on this one. In many cases, or I would say in several cases, if you are a Palestinian landowner, you can build legally on your property. But what happens in this case, in the majority of cases, you can build just few housing units. Why? Because according to the Israeli authorities, they want to preserve the rural character of the Palestinian areas, meaning that you can build at maximum 2 or 3 stories. So your building is, I would say, not that tall. What's going on in the Jewish neighborhoods quite close to the Palestinian neighborhoods in East Jerusalem? This kind of stuff, okay? So if you are in the Jewish neighborhood, you can build a tower 20 stories. If you are a Palestinian, you can build just 2 or 3 stories. So in many cases, you cannot build. Even if you can build just few housing units. And this is another reason for the housing scarcity we are talking about. And what is the result of these urban policies and urban plans in terms of the urban fabric? This is the result, okay? We are talking of these neighborhoods in many Palestinian areas. So meaning that in the majority, in many cases, these housing units are informal or illegal according to the Israeli law. So the esteemed spoke about around 30 to 50% of overall housing stock in the Arab Palestinian neighborhoods, which is composed by illegal housing. So illegal housing, keep in mind that illegal housing units are a problem not only for a quality problem from a quality perspective, but in particular because illegal housing units can be demolished by Israeli authorities in any moment. So if you own an illegal house, your house can be demolished at any time. And this is why I said that these policies make Palestinians precarious and in a way submitted, because if you are a Palestinian under the risk of having your house demolished, you think twice before going for protest or something like this. So this condition of poor quality refers in particular to housing units, but we can say also we refer in generally speaking to the neighborhood structure. This is an Arab picture of Jerusalem. Guess what is the Jewish neighborhood and what is the Arab neighborhood, okay? And we are in the same city under the same administration. So according to the Israeli law, these two parts of the city should plan it in the same way. However, this is not the case. If you analyze the municipal budget for urban development in the last 50 years, you have that in the last 10 years you have been lucky. Why? Because you, if you are Palestinian, received around 10 to 15% of the overall budget, even if you are 37% of the population. So the Palestinians are around 37-40% of the population, but they received in the last 10 years 10 to 15% of the municipal budget for urban development. And they are lucky because in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, this quota, the municipal budget, was 5%. So for 30 years, the allocation of municipal budget was completely discriminatory. And this is the result. You don't have public infrastructure, public facilities, in some cases even the connection to basic infrastructure such as water system or sewage system. And this is the most shocking quotation I was able to find. This is Teddy Kollek, so a progressive Israeli mayor for 25 years in Jerusalem. And he said, we said over and over that we would equalize the rights of the Arabs to the rights of Jewish in the city. Empty talk. They were and remain second and third class citizens. For Jewish Jerusalem, I did something in the past 25 years. For East Jerusalem, nothing. What did they do? Nothing. Sidewalks? Nothing. Culture institution? Not one. Yes, we installed a sewage system for them and improved the water supply. Do you know why? Do you think it was for their good, for their welfare? Forget it. There were some cases of cholera there, and the Jewish were afraid that they would catch it. So we installed a sewage and water system against cholera. And this was the mayor of Jerusalem for 25 years. So it was not a Palestinian supporter. Okay, so this is an official declaration. Okay, this is the situation. So this is why I'm talking about the dual city. Today we have two Jerusalems. One is modern, well-planned, and well-infrastructure city, which is the Jewish city, and the other one, unfortunately, is the derelict and backward city, which is, in majority of cases, the Palestinian city. However, this picture is not complete if we not take into consideration the wall. The wall is the final step in the transformation of Jerusalem or in the conquest of Jerusalem. Why? Because my previous speaker already stressed it. It materializes the new physical border of Jerusalem, not only at the municipal scale, but at the metropolitan scale, okay? Again, this is the situation of the ground today, thanks or due to the wars. So we have a city which expanded outside the municipal border in order to reach a metropolitan scale, and through the wall, you have been able to materialize the new borders of this metropolitan area through selective inclusion and exclusions. Obviously, what is included is always, in the majority of cases, Jewish settlements in the West Bank. So as you can see, the three blocks Dana was talking about. And what is excluded is, in three cases, again, three very densely populated Palestinian neighborhoods. Right, we have to stress right now that this is a de facto knock at the Euro border. So this wall has no legal validity in terms of jurisdiction, so this is not the new, I would say, municipal border. But, for instance, some months ago, Netanyahu said that they are thinking about excluding legally these Palestinian neighborhoods outside the wall from the municipality. So it's quite, I would say, it could happen in not the far future, but in the close future, that these three neighborhoods which are outside the wall, but still inside the legal municipal border, will be put also outside the legal municipal border, with all the consequences that this previous speaker were speaking about, being excluded from the city from the point of view of being citizens. So the result is that through this selective inclusion and exclusion, they are creating a new metropolitan reality, which is this one. So today, this is the city we have at the metropolitan scale. It's a greater Jewish Jerusalem, was a long-lasting dream of Israeli politician, composed by a united urban area, almost entirely Jewish and almost entirely for Jewish alone. In this Jewish sea, Palestinian areas are like alien islands within I would say, a city which is going in another direction. So this is why I spoke about a dual city, so a dual situation in terms of urban fabric, but a city which is not any longer divisible along at least the 1967 border. That's it. Thank you.
شكرا على الالتزام بالوقت وتوفير 3 دقائق
Thank you for respecting the time limit. Now we can open the floor for questions and answers. We start with the gentleman at the back. Please be brief and make your questions pointed. Assalamu alaikum. Adnan Al-Qarsi. I'm from the history department here at the Doha Institute. I thank the Institute, first of all, for organizing this event. I really like the interventions, but Mr. Khamaisi's paper was very methodological, and we want in this institute to deconstruct the discourse. Please be brief. Yes, we need mechanisms, methodological mechanisms, and this paper will be a good start. Thank you. Another question? السلام عليكم نهيل الهندي. I think if a doctor wants to prescribe medicine, he should know about the problem. We talked about the demographic and geographical aspects, but I think the decision by Trump was based on religion, not other aspects. That's why he used the word Jews and not the state of Israel. This is a general question to all panelists, and that is how we can reconcile between what happened. Dennis Ross want things once, but the Palestinians have needs. So, in reality, how can we reconcile this in any negotiation? And how we can reach a formula within the framework of the two-state solution, especially when there are different facts on the ground. I think the city, the state of the West Bank is maybe worse than Jerusalem. So how can we ultimately can find a political formula for this? We move to the other side of the room. Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad Tamimi. I thank you for this organization of this event. Maybe what I'm saying is rather theoretical. I am amazed by what I've been hearing by the old steps taken, and it brings to my mind a situation similar to Cold War situation. I wasn't aware of this. So this policy of peacemaking by Arab regimes led this situation. Ultimately, there is no focus by the media. We have a terrible shortage. I, for one, never heard about these things before this event. So the media is not telling us this. Thank you.
معتز المسلوخي محامي باحث قانوني.
معتز المسلوخي I'm illegal. Dr. Al-Kurd, you spoke about protest movement and demonstrations in Jerusalem, and you compare that to the protests on the electronic gates and the social cohesion and that. How can we, or what can we do to raise the level of popular movement on the ground? And also, my question to Dr. Khalil, we know the Zionist project is based on transfer and ending the Palestinian personality altogether, and it's a demographic struggle. How can this be used by us to restore our rights? This is not a question, just a quick observation. What Dr. Khalil said about moving the embassy, he said it's not been decided, but it has been. It will be moved in May. And the original embassy in Tel Aviv will remain, but this one, the main one, will be moved to Jerusalem. Dr. Khalil and Dr. Rassem, I just want to ascertain something. Is it true that in Israel it's not allowed even for Israelis to have private ownership of the land, and everything is registered in the name of the Jewish agency? So if this is true, then the problem is much bigger than even negotiating with Israel, because even Israel as a government is not authorized to give up on even an inch of land. Then our problem is with the Jewish agency. We always say our problem is not with the Jews. It's obvious that it is, isn't it? Now, maybe after this question we'll start taking reactions. I noticed that we are very good in describing the situation descriptively, but without providing solutions, not perspectively. We keep talking about settlement, the wall, etc. Shouldn't we be talking about solutions? We're all describing the situation and are not saying anything about any solutions. Thank you. Okay, now we'll start taking responses. Now we'll work in reverse order. Francesco, can you start first, please, and choose any question you want to respond to? And I don't think any direct question was posed to you, but choose anyone you'd like to respond to.
Okay. There were no questions directed to my presentation, but I would like just to address this last point about describing, which is not providing solution. Obviously, describing is not providing solution, but I would say two things. The first one is, this is my task at least as urban scholar. So the first point is that we must know which is the reality in order to know which are the solution we can go on for. For instance, if what we said is true, we know that the solution of redivision along the 1967 is not any longer possible. So we know that this solution is not any longer available. Maybe we don't know what to do. I have some ideas, but I'm not political scientist, so I will not go on for proposing my idea, but at least through the descriptions, we know which kind of solution is not any longer feasible. So this is already a step forward, I guess, in terms at least the European debate, but because I'm not very much aware of the debate in Arab countries, but I'm very much aware of the debate in Europe, and in Europe the debate is still, I would say, are taking for granted this reality or redivision along 1967 border. Both options are, according to me, not any longer feasible. And okay, that's it for now. Okay, now the second point was maybe the scrum is not providing solution, but if we want to speak outside the Arab world, in particular in the European countries, first of all, we have to make them aware of what's going on, because they don't have any perception of this kind of stuff, okay? Maybe you are here more aware of the situation. In Europe, just a tiny portion of the population is aware of what's going on the ground. This is why maybe the scribing is not providing solution, but the scribing is providing, I would say, the roof for changing the situation, hopefully.
شكرا فرانشيسكو. ننتقل للدكتور راسم.
Now, Dr. Rassem,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا.
thank you very much.
حقيقة يعني أنا بخاف لما أجاوب على الأسئلة أمام
I always worry that when I respond to questions, I end up giving another lecture. First of all, if the institute here or the center continues, we should not worry about the description, because we have a big problem. Maybe we do not look for opportunities, even for 5% is better than nothing. Maybe we need this at least as a form of self-criticism, maybe. The problem is not religious. If people want to bring us into the religious track, if we do that, we will lose when it comes to conceptualization. It's much easier to talk about the Crusades and the revival of the Jews in the Promised Land, but we know there is a struggle within Israel between different trends. Some are regional, some are because of the doctrine, even the religious sect. So therefore we do not want to even within us, we are not all the same. Of course we have different schools of thought, so we must focus on issues which are politically and ethically will serve us. We must understand these considerations. And how can we reconcile between, yes, there is the possibility and the potential, but there should be a discourse. The politician should not continue thinking that he is an encyclopedic person, he knows everything, and also the researcher should not think that they should always think everything for the politician. This is a problem, this kind of dialectical situation. We are a nation who were abused and let down by our politicians and misguided by scholars. We are not in a situation of cold occupation, it's a hot occupation. The situation in Jerusalem can be summarized in one phrase, and that is the state of Israel is built on the militarization. Even the civilians were at one time military officers. So from a military point of view, they understand things from a military perspective, but they try to present it in a civilian matter or manner. As for the question on the Jewish agency, in the state of Israel, which is defined according to Israeli definition, only 5.7% of the land is built. The rest is empty. Secondly, 7% are private land. Some are Arab land, some are Jews, bought from the Arab, Beit Tikva, Nahariya, and other places. The Zionist agency today, according to what Ben Gurion did to take the lands of the refugees, which is called the Lira deal, he paid 2.5 million to Zionist agency, and now this agency, the Jewish agency, sorry, control 17%. Not the state of Israel I'm talking about. All of these lands are subjugated to the basic law of 1960 that the lands in Israel are administered by the government. I don't have time to go into details. In 2009, the state of Israel amended the law of land ownership to enable lands which were leased to be bought and sold. 880,000 dunams, and some of the Arab Palestinians, except Jerusalem, they can acquire Arab land. And if we talk about these tools, the more we advance, the more we develop our tools while staying on our land, secures our future. The state of Israel is the only state in the world, despite its ability to control the land, it still pays money to buy land through the company Denoto. In Jordan and Syria, we were in case we here reach Iraq. As for the solutions, yes, if people think we are passive, then they are wrong. We are working, we're developing, we have initiative. And also we counter planning, and with limited resources, but of course the lack of coordination and cooperation, it's difficult. We own the land inside, we struggle, we try. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Khalil. Also, respond to whatever questions you like. So far as the media attention is concerned, even in the audio-visual media, when we talk about a definition for the city of Jerusalem, maybe when you see these maps for the first time, and we tried in Turkey to do that, this requires a lot of effort, because Jerusalem is not the dome of the rock mosque, it's more than that. So far as the two-state solution, today that's no longer feasible because the Israelis finished everything. Now the settlements on the West Bank can no longer allow for a Palestinian state with this amount of Israeli settlements there. The Israelis do not want them. We said to them, let's be one state. As for the demography, we're not sleeping in Gaza when they made studies that in 2040 and 2050 there'll be majority Arabs. They got rid of the Gaza Strip. Also, there is migration from the West Bank outwards. Also, the ratio, the rate of births amongst Palestinians is lowering because of urbanization. So therefore we have a problem. If we want to rely on the demography, then this will not do, because they too have religious Jews who produce more than we do. Thank you. It seems that even this weapon of reproduction is no longer viable. Dana?
Okay.
The questioner asked, how can we make the Palestinians in Jerusalem focus on political issues in the long run. When did Jerusalem move actively? This was in the first Intifada before 1993, when we had deep organizations in combination with other factors, and this will take time to be rebuilt, especially in view of the Israeli oppression, and also the number of Palestinians is increased. The coordination will be even more difficult. There are two things which might help. If the political situation was not so disintegrated, the Palestinian Authority should take up its responsibility, not just rhetorically. They should work for the cause of Jerusalem and represent it, and also there should not be contradiction in the PA's policies and what they want from Jerusalem. I have more faith in the organization by the people inside Palestine. Dr. Mohanad is present here with us. He has a new research paper on the Arabs inside Israel and their participation in protests in the summer against the electronic gates, and more than an organization inside the 48 lands are active now. So I personally have a hope that they can fill the political vacuum in East Jerusalem to a certain extent, but the root cause is that lies in the Palestinian Authority not determining what it says or what it does, and its policies do not represent it gets involved rhetorically and not policy, in terms of policy. Thank you very much for all of you for respecting the timeline and time limit. We made a historical achievement. We finished before time. We must not forget that the people of Jerusalem is the world over. All the Arabs and Muslims are all people of Jerusalem, no matter how the demographic situation changes.